I am here today to talk about the tremendous opportunity we have about sustainable innovation. When I go to these type of innovation fora in Canada, very often I experience something what I call Silicon Valley envy. And again, this afternoon there is a little bit of Silicon Valley envy in this room. Jim de Wild, or as we Dutch people call him, Jim de Wilde, already indicated earlier this afternoon that there are things that we have and Silicon Valley does not have. Jim referred to clean tech here in Ontario, clean tech around Vancouver. It's a booming industry. But I'm also here to talk about the enormous opportunities we have for innovation in our resource-based industries. Last time I looked at the TSX, they were still Canada's golden geese. And we better grab that opportunity. The Conference Board of Canada came out with a study earlier this year, hammering that we fail in innovation. We push below our level. Notwithstanding all what was said here this afternoon, we push below our level. And why is that? Probably because in these golden geese, we don't grab the opportunities we should take. And the danger of not taking that is phenomenal. Let me give you one example where we already lost. It's called paper and pulp in British Columbia. The paper and pulp industry in British Columbia, we were on top of the world in the late 80s. And we had two goodies: cheap labor and cheap energy. And it made us complacent. We did not innovate. And the countries who had these goodies, who did not have these goodies, like Scandinavia or Korea, they only had one option: to innovate. And boy, did they ever. And if you today take a CEO of a paper and pulp company from Scandinavia to British Columbia, they have no idea that that old stuff still is around. We lost an industry, we lost jobs, we lost the future. We have tremendous opportunities in our resource-based industries. Mining, utilities, but I'm particularly going to talk this afternoon about oil and gas. The world needs cheap, reliable, safe, clean energy. That is where your economic prosperity starts. That is what has built this country. Now, we are currently with 7 billion people. Whitney referred to it this afternoon. But we are on our way to 9 billion people. And they all want a life like you and me. And I have to make a confession. I'm an addict. I'm an addict to hydrocarbons. I came here by plane. I came here by taxi. If I sit in this seat, this is a hydrocarbon. Virtually everything we are living in the modern version of Midas' story. We live hydrocarbons. And at the same time, the International Panel on Climate Change came out again with an alarming report this weekend. We are definitely on our way to increase of our temperature worldwide by 1 to 2%, but in the north of Canada, that will mean 5 to 6% in the next 50 years. We already see the devastating things happening in our in British Columbia. We see glaciers retreating, we have had the pine beetle forest, and now we have the massive, massive dying off of our clams and other shellfish industry, because the CO2 that the oceans can absorb has reached a certain level. But we are hooked on hydrocarbons. And the people who are not yet hooked on hydrocarbons are willing to get hooked ASAP. And whatever picture, like you see here, you have seen, it's all the same. because of this phenomenal growth in the demand for energy, whatever we do with clean tech, it will not be enough. For the next 20 to 30 years, we will also have to rely on hydrocarbons. And some of you will say, well, no, yeah, well, we can do this way, way faster. And I hear that all the time. I think that's dangerous. It's dangerous to overpromise and underdeliver. You will lose the big audience at one point, and you will for sure lose the financial community who has to pay for the innovation in order to ensure that we do two things. Here at the top of the graph is all the renewables. And so what you see here is that even under the most aggressive scenarios, like Germany saying by 2025 we want 45% of our power generation from renewables. That's the most aggressive thing that we are not going to adjust our lives. So even when we do that, only the growth in energy demand is coming from renewables. And of course, we need to play that hard. We need to ensure that we have more innovation to push this harder. The purple is nuclear. Boy, would I be happy if we could do clean nuclear. But we have a tremendous, tremendous opportunity in trying to ensure that we make the hydrocarbons that we are going to use much cleaner and that we get more out of a barrel of oil. That is our big challenge. That is what we have to work on. The world really needs miracles in this regard. Now, I'm very happy to say that I see a lot of innovation coming around that is very promising. Some of you may say, yeah, but come on. I've heard this story about clean tech innovation in the past decades. It's all a money-losing proposition. Sorry, Eric, my pebble is going wild. I only get I have to put it off. It distracts me. I get too many messages. Maybe some people here are the audience already. So where was I? No, so some of you will say, this is a money-losing proposition. And it's true. In clean tech, we have gone through a phenomenal wild ride. We basically, until recently, were in a situation where clean tech was an industry where you pushed technologies that were not really mature yet into the hands of early adopter customers who are willing to pay a premium for clean. Now, most of clean tech is energy. And energy is a commodity industry. Cost is king. So it's no wonder that when the recession hit in 2008, all the clean tech stocks fell off the table. And everybody thought, gee, no, this is gone. What is very interesting is that in the past years, we have seen really a maturing of clean technologies to the point that many of them are now ready for prime time. They're ready to play a role in the core business of large companies. And just to give you an idea, if you look at a solar panel today, it's only 20% in cost of what it was 4 years ago. In the past 4 years, we have seen the cost of solar coming down by 20–25% every year, year over year, while the efficiency is still going up. So the technologies are really becoming ready for prime time. As such, what we also see is that we had a total addressable market in this area of maybe 500 billion max, to where we are going now. In the next few years, this will already be a market of 3 to 4 trillion. It's going very rapidly. But we had to go through this process of building a new industry. It's almost comparable to building the automotive industry 100 years ago. 100 years ago, just in North America, you had about 100 car companies. Today, you have 3 or 3 and a quarter, if I give a quarter to Tesla. It's really the process of you have to kiss 97 frogs before you find a few princes. We are now at the stage that we have found princes and find more and more princesses in this evolving industry. And we better grab that opportunity. think about what I said about the paper and pulp industry in British Columbia. If we don't grab this opportunity, if we don't reinvent our resource-based industries, if we don't really exploit our leading position in clean tech, others will take it over. In the area of clean tech already, we see that China is using about 4% of its GDP on clean tech innovation. This is phenomenal, but it's also scary. We may be focused on apps on Sand Hill Road and consumer electronics, but they may, moving forward, own the biggest industry in the world, including the automotive industry. We better wake up. We are really complacent in our resource-based industries. Let me go to a picture that brings it for me all together. We're using this at Chrysalix. For us, it's all about trying to find those sustainable innovations that can simultaneously reduce cost, reduce the energy intensity of products and production processes while improving the environmental footprint. And there are tremendous needs in large industries that are currently going through a tremendous transition. Oil and gas, power and utilities, chemicals and materials, mining and metals. And in all these industries, you see, of course, the support of all the automation and manufacturing industries that have to play out in these industrial verticals. It's very important to focus on that. What can we do that can simultaneously reduce cost, reduce energy intensity, and improve the environmental footprint? Most CEOs understand this already. PwC came out with a survey in Davos among a few hundred of large energy CEOs worldwide. And the result of this survey was that 80% of them fundamentally believe that innovation will have a profound impact on their industry in the next 5 years. So it's no wonder that virtually every Fortune 500 company these days is talking about the need for a sustainable innovation strategy. It's almost comparable to 10 years ago when everybody suddenly wanted to have an internet strategy. That now has become part of the normal way of doing business, and so will sustainable innovation. Frankly, if 20 years from now we still talk about clean tech, something has gone horribly wrong. So it's no wonder that we see these days large companies like Siemens and General Electric already pushing in their annual reports that they, in the past year, did 25 billion in clean tech revenues. Now, what is that? I mean, in the case of General Electric, that is what you would expect from solar to wind to LED lights, but also way more energy efficient engines for locomotives or airplanes, and way more energy efficient and water efficient dishwashers. Now, is that clean tech? Of course that's clean tech. But now push that a little further. If 50% reduction in energy in a dishwasher is clean tech, is 50% reduction in a oil extraction process then clean tech? Imagine that we can do in oil and gas, in particular in oil in Canada, localized upgrading. So now we suddenly will never have bitumen in a pipeline any longer. You don't need to ship in diluent. Imagine that we can really turn our oil and gas industry in the cleanest in the world. And why would that not be possible? The metal industry did it 20 years ago when they went to mini mills. So why could we not have mini upgraders? If we could do that, we could, in the future, both export the best, the cheapest, the cleanest energy in the world and we could export all those technologies that we would have developed in order to get there. This is a tremendous opportunity. We are trying to find these type of opportunities at Chrysalix. I'll give you just quickly a few examples. This is GlassPoint. GlassPoint is doing concentrated solar to generate steam for the process industry. First application is enhanced oil recovery in the Middle East. In the Middle East, most of the oil fields are semi-depleted. So in order to get the heavy oil out of the reservoir, after the free-flowing is gone now, you heat up the soil. Typically, people do that with natural gas. Natural gas in the area trades at $15 per MMBTU. This thing gives an alternative of $5 to $7. Hugely in the money. Payback time, 4 to 5 years max. We delivered this field 2 years ago in Oman, on time, on budget, on spec. It was a $15 million project. We thought that we were going to go to a $100 million project. We are currently working on a $750 million project in total. Why? It reduces cost, it reduces energy intensity by replacing natural gas with solar, and it improves, hence, the environmental footprint. The mining industry. The only innovation that I've seen in the mining industry in the past decades, frankly, is go bigger. Bigger mines, bigger machines. But the mining industry has now become by far the largest user of diesel oil in North America. Energy efficiency is a total strange word in the mining industry. So here comes our company, MineSense. MineSense brings ruggedized sensors to the actual exploration equipment so that the guy or the girl who operates one of these big trucks takes a scoop of rock, and in real time, they get a read whether that rock is worthwhile to be hauled up from the mine and then sent down the road to the mill for crushing and further processing, or if he just lays it aside. So the goal here is a reduction of rock movement in the mining industry by 30 to 50%. That's a total game changer. Another example, Axine. It's very interesting. They started with fuel cells. It's a really innovated, a real aggressive innovator, a lady, discovered that, gee, if I just take the membrane and I start using it for wastewater treatment, it's a huge opportunity. That membrane works very well for recalcitrant toxic organics. Now, some of you may say, gee, you know, that's great, that we should bring that to municipalities. Yeah, maybe over time. But municipalities don't have the money to help develop these type of technologies. We're talking here about a capital-intensive industry. And so what we need to do is to try to ensure that we first get some other people's money in. Some large corporations who have the capital to help develop these things. It's almost like an Apollo project. You use the need to solve the problems with tailing points in the oil sands, to clean that up, and in the process develop a technology that you can later on can spread out in municipalities. Last but not least, of course, we love to see a breakthrough in nuclear fusion. I can talk to you the rest of the afternoon about the prospects of nuclear fusion, but I can only tell you it is getting very, very close. The world needs this. And I hope that sometime in the next 10 years, we will see the first commercial plant in nuclear fusion. I'm not going to dwell more about that. If you're interested in, we can take this offline, but I can tell you it is getting very, very close. But even if tomorrow we get the last technology breakthrough, of course, before you have worked yourself through all the regulations, it will take 10 to 15 years before these things will start to be rolled out massively. So there is enormous opportunity. And the question, of course, is how can we capture them? How can we together create a new ecosystem in our resource-based industries? To the small companies in the ecosystem, I always say, the fact that you engineers at 3 o'clock at night sit in your room and look at your computer screen and see a breakthrough, and that you marvel about how wonderful that is meaningless until there is a willing customer, somebody who's willing to pay for that. It's very important. So understand your value chain. To the large companies, I am saying, create an aggressive culture for innovation. Get rid of the not invented here syndrome, which really in Canada is enormous. Ensure that people who make a mistake in innovation don't lose their job. It's a learning exercise, but it is very important. Those large companies who will aggressively embrace innovation will probably become the leaders of the future, or as I call them, the green elephants of the future. And then to the governments, I say, ensure that you set stretch but doable targets. No subsidies for the long term. Sometimes you need to ensure that you have startup subsidies. There's a lot to do, but really I see a win-win-win situation for small companies, large companies, and the society at large. And we need more engineers, like here from Waterloo, to start taking their part in this enormous opportunity that we have in Canada. This sums it up. We're trying to change the game here. We're trying to say, gee, we have a lot of clean tech in Canada, and we have on the other side oil and gas. But if we can bring them together, it could be a total game changer for this country. It could help improve the environmental performance in oil and gas. It could create solutions for a more sustainable energy future. It will definitely help grow Canada's clean tech industry by connecting them to the large companies who have the money to help them develop their technologies. The net result could be that we will lead the world in smart resource development. Ladies and gentlemen, for a country like Canada, this is an opportunity that you should not miss. Thank you very much.